Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about how you can learn to fly without having thousands of pounds, a few tips and tricks, and also about my flying journey and how I've got to where I am today. So one of the first things to think about is what exactly is it that you're getting into flight training for? Do you want to become a private pilot, a commercial airline pilot, a military pilot? And from all of those there are lots of options. Airplane, helicopter, glider, microlight, there's lots to choose from. For the majority of people, the end goal is eventually to one day become a commercial airline pilot, in which case there are typically two types of training, modular or integrated. Integrated flight training is full-time flight training, usually at a big flying school academy. You may do some part of your training in the UK and maybe some overseas to take advantage of the better weather. Modular flight training is breaking your flight training up into individual chunks. Almost each license or rating you can do individually. This means you don't necessarily have to do it at the same place and you don't necessarily have to do it full-time. However, you still can do if you wish to do so. Integrated flight training is usually very expensive, somewhere in the region of £100,000 to £150,000. It's a fairly simple concept. You go away for 18 months with no flying experience and come back as a fully fledged airline pilot. In the current climate, this may not be the best thing to undertake right now. However, there still is a global pilot shortage, so please don't be put off from things that you may see on social media. The majority of this video is going to focus on modular flight training, which is how I've done my flight training, and also it's the cheaper way of doing flight training. So if you're watching this and you want to become a pilot or learn to fly in some form and you haven't got thousands of pounds, then stay tuned to find out how you can still become a pilot. So we'll taxi out, do our power checks, and then get going slowly but surely. Should be a lovely, lovely day. Golf Kilo Romeo, ready for departure at Bravo 2.
Golf Kilo Romeo, Roger, surface in 130 degrees, 6 knots.
Roger, lining up 05 and we'll depart on the downwind leg. Golf Kilo Romeo.
Roger. One ahead, left base, short descending final.
I'll tell you what, that's something you never get sick of. The feeling of lifting into the air, no matter how many times you do it, where you're taking off from, where you're going to, how long you're flying for, what aircraft you're flying. It's just fantastic. And that comes back to having your passion for aviation. If you've got an interest and it's something you want to do, then you'll absolutely love it and you'll thrive within aviation. It's such a great community and such a small world as well. Stunning day today, the views are just incredible. So both my parents worked in aviation when I was a toddler, a little boy, and they were pre-9/11 days, so back then my grandparents could take me up to see my parents on their lunch break and things, and they both worked at Heathrow. So being surrounded by big, large, fascinating aircraft from such a young age, I think has definitely given me the aviation bug, and from that day onwards I've always wanted to fly and sort of be involved in aviation and love aircraft and have a real interest for everything aircraft and flying. When I was 13, which was the minimum age at the time, however I believe it's now 12, I joined the Air Cadets, now called Royal Air Force Air Cadets, I think, also known as the Air Training Corps, and this is one of the best things that I did, not only for me generally in life, but also for my aviation journey. I think between the age of 13 and 16, I managed to get some air experience flights in a light aircraft, and also some gliding as well. And man, you don't forget that. The first flight, first glider flight that you do, it's just incredible. The feeling of getting into the air when it's something you've always wanted to do is just great. When I was a little bit older, so about 16 years old, I applied for a gliding scholarship, and I was awarded a gliding scholarship, and I undertook that at 618 Volunteer Glider Squadron at RAF Odium. It basically offered me a 10-hour course, and within those 10 hours I was very lucky, and I managed to go solo, my first ever solo in any form of aircraft. So that's definitely something also that you don't forget. Wow, what an amazing experience, you know. It's not to say you weren't nervous, because at the time I felt sick, and it was horrible, you know. It was like, oh my goodness, I'm fully responsible for an aircraft now. But you concentrate, you do what you need to do, you sing yourself a little song, and oh man, what a feeling after landing. Ecstatic. And it took me probably a good few weeks or months to get over that. Beyond that, when I was a bit older, about 18 years old, I applied for a flying scholarship through the Air Cadets, the Air Cadet Pilot Scheme. And it felt like ages. I was waiting and waiting and waiting, and you're like, oh, am I going to get it? And then I got a letter. I remember getting a letter through the post saying, congratulations, you've been awarded the prestigious pilot scheme, which is, again, 10 or 15 hours, I think, flying training at Dundee, Tayside Aviation in Scotland. The idea is to give you that sort of initial part of your training towards going on and getting a license. Some of my very early videos on my channel include a lot of my flying as part of my scholarship, so please feel free to check them out and have a look, and you can see what an awesome airport Dundee is actually as well, with the views right on the River Tay, and the local flying you get to do around there is just fantastic. So I discovered an organisation called the Air League. They're a non-profit organisation that aims to support many people, anyone with any form of interest in aviation, into the likes of flying, engineering, air traffic and aerospace, sort of helping them into the aviation industry, and with skills and trips and visits and scholarships and bursaries, so that they can get their foot in the door and hopefully help them progress to the next stage. At the time, I must have been around 17, there was a flying scholarship that I applied for, the Bristow NPPL scholarship, which gives you 30 to 35 hours, can't remember exactly, of flying, all paid for, which will give you, at the time, your national private pilot's license. That's changed slightly now, with the regulations changing, but the principle is still the same. It's now called a light aircraft pilot's license. Got my application in nice and early, and it was several stages to the application process. There were several interviews, group exercises. I had to actually go to RAF Cranwell and undertake officer and aircrew selection as well. The scholarship was partly sponsored by the Air League and partly sponsored by Bristow Helicopters, a big international helicopter company. So I remember applying, and I got multiple friends and family members to check my application to make sure everything was squeaky clean and that it was best it could be, still within the word limit. And I sent it off, and then a few months later I had heard back that I'd been successful. And man, it's like winning the lottery. I don't know how many people apply, but you know, to be lucky enough to receive that opportunity. That's why I've got such a passion now for giving something back to the community and to fellow future aviators. You know, I cannot thank both Bristow and the Air League enough for offering me that opportunity, and that was such an important step in the ladder towards my further flying. I decided to get a full-time job, and I applied for a job at my local airfield at the time, which was Goodwood, and I got a job there working as the flying school and operations assistant. And then I found a job in flight operations with a business jet company based at Farnborough, And that job was flight planning, dispatching, and working within the operations department for this business jet company. Whilst I was there, I applied for a few more scholarships and bursaries that were available. Another scholarship through the Air League, and I also applied for a scholarship from the Royal Aero Club Trust. And I was lucky enough to be awarded a scholarship from the Royal Aero Club Trust and another scholarship from the Air League to further my training. So I completed my tail wheel conversion course, and I completed my night rating using the money from the scholarship. So after completing those scholarships, I returned back to work and saving my money, and used some of my savings to pay to hire aircraft just to build up my hours. And I started to think about how I would make the next steps towards becoming a commercial pilot. I completed my ATPL, Air Transport Pilot's Licence, ground school at Bristol Ground School. Whilst I was doing my research, I discovered that there was a scheme run by West Atlantic Airlines, a cargo airline based in the Midlands of the UK. And it was a pilot cadet scheme, so it's designed for those who already have their private pilot's licence and potentially their ground school for their commercial flying. And you join them in flight operations, and they help sponsor your commercial pilot's licence, your instrument rating and your type rating. I applied. Before I applied, I got everyone to check over, make sure everything was as best as it could be, and submitted my application. Because it's such a prestigious scheme, there's lots of parts to the application process, several interviews, day assessments, a simulator assessment, and then a final interview and presentation with some of the directors within the company. So towards the end of 2016, I heard back from West Atlantic saying that I'd been successful, one of two, which is amazing. I say, again, I don't know how many people applied, but you just feel like you've won the lottery, and it's absolutely amazing, and I'm so thankful for the opportunities. But if you have got a passion, you have got an interest, and you're determined to get into flying and into aviation, if you work hard and keep pushing, you can get there. So unfortunately, during the time in which I was enjoying Christmas with my family, I had some communication from the company, and due to unforeseen circumstances, they unfortunately had to stop and suspend the pilot cadet scheme until further notice, which remains the case. So at this point, I've probably had in the region of £30,000 of free flying training. So, you know, you absolutely cannot be disappointed at that. It's incredible, and I'm so lucky, and still, you know, don't take it for granted. And then early that year in 2017, I decided that for the best in my life and aviation journey, I need to progress on with my work, and I applied for a job at Gatwick Airport. After applying for the job at Gatwick, being successful, I continued to work hard there, save money, and have since started my final part of my training towards my air transport pilot's licence.
Oscar Romeo Victor approach. Continue to use full course.
And was very close to finishing just before the lockdown hit.
Right turn the coast, the surface wind 120.
Hopefully once the lockdown is over, I can finish my last bits of my air transport pilot's licence. And then my next step is to potentially look at doing my flying instructor's rating. I'd love to be able to teach some more people in the future how to fly, and you know, give them the feeling of the freedom that hopefully you can see, and you've seen through my videos, and something that I you know, want to show everyone else. If you are interested in learning to fly or getting into aviation, then please do look at some of the trusts and non-profit organisations that I've mentioned. There's absolutely loads of them. Probably lots that I haven't mentioned as well. Just to name a few, there's the Air League, the Royal Aero Club Trust, the Royal Aeronautical Society, the Honourable Company of Air Pilots and Navigators, the British Women Pilots Association, Airability, the British Gliding Association, Light Aircraft Association, British Microlight Association. There's absolutely loads. There's a real wealth of knowledge and experience out there from industry experts. And I say it's such a fantastic community. Everyone's more than willing to help and support you on your journey. So please do have a look, do some research, and if you are looking at flying and you think, well, hang on a minute, I haven't got the thousands of pounds to learn to fly, well, it is possible. Be passionate, get down to your local airfield and try a number of things. There's cost shared flights you can do with a private pilot, someone like myself, through places like Wingley. They give you a taste of flying before you go and do lessons at your local school. You could also go down to your local glider airfield and do some gliding for a fraction of the price of flying. And likewise with microlights, again, they tend to be a bit cheaper. And you can also do a certain amount of training on microlights now as well. Likewise, if you do have any questions or want to hear any more or delve more into my journey about how I become a pilot, then please do leave a comment below or send me a message. And please do
Good word, Golf Alpha Delta.
have a look at my other social media feeds for lots of pictures, updates, stories, to hopefully keep you interested. Please also check out my website. There's lots of useful tips, tricks and information on there. And a non-exhaustive list of some of the scholarships available to those looking to get into aviation. I remember as a 12, 13-year-old from a non-affluent family, you know, I'm never going to be able to get there, and I remember going to career shows and seeing all the pound signs and thinking, it's going to be impossible, may as well give up. Well, don't. It is possible. Hopefully I'm an example of how it is possible. One thing that's briefly worth mentioning as well, which I haven't touched on yet, is the current times that we live in. There's lots of negativity surrounding aviation and the travel industry, and you know, I'm not going to lie to you, it's definitely hit every industry really badly, which is such a shame. And it's horrible to see so many people losing their jobs and their livelihoods and things which they just really enjoy doing. But please don't let that put you off. Aviation is still such a fantastic industry to get into, and you know, although we might be in a real lull currently in this country, things will pick up again one day. And you know, worldwide there still is a global pilot shortage, so you might have to expand your horizons a bit, and you might have to look further afield depending on how quickly you want to get into flying. Or of course your other option is something which I keep banging on about. Do your private pilot's license first, or you know, some form of private flying, gliding, microlights, or whatever it may be, and do this sort of flying for a while. This is fantastic. You can of course go on and do more, and even if you start flying at the age of 30, you've still got 30 years of your working life left. There's plenty of time to do some absolutely amazing flying in that, so hopefully in some way, shape or form, I would have inspired even just one of you to look up aviation or learning to fly, or to get flying. As always, thank you very much for watching. It really does mean a lot. If you do have any questions, my inbox is always open. Until next time, take care, and thanks again for watching.